Echo and looked into it. They are sold out, apparently. That was one of the things that was trending on Facebook, and I don't think it's fake news.
I have to tell you quickly, my 5-year-old son had a go at it. The very first thing he asked it for was a biscuit, and it said, adding biscuits to your shopping cart. So I thought, oh, hang on, I need to disable this before he starts buying houses on my behalf.
You've got a smart 5-year-old there. So very good to have you down with us. Thanks very much for your picks of the tech stories of 2016.
To find out more on the stories we're covering, follow at BBC OS.
Right, many of you are asking me on Periscope about Malta. Let's try and get more details for you. I mentioned a Libyan passenger plane had been forced to land there. The Maltese Prime Minister called it a potential hijack situation. Let's see what else we know with Matthew Vella, a journalist with Malta Today. Hi Matthew, what are you hearing?
Well, right now we're having different pieces of information. What we know definitely is that the plane was diverted to Malta. There are 2 hijackers on board. We believe they are pro-Gaddafi supporters, possibly from a resistance movement called Al-Fatah al-Jadida, which basically gets its name from the Al-Fatah revolution led by Gaddafi. So it seems that their affiliation right now is established. The other piece of information that we just got right now, there's a tweet from the Maltese Prime Minister, Joseph Muscat, who says that of the 118 people on board right now, there are 28 women, 82 men, and 1 infant.
Where has the plane landed, Matthew?
If I'm not mistaken, it's on Park 8 at the Malta International Airport, and it's fairly apart from the other planes where they land. And right now there are units from the Armed Forces of Malta and the Civil Protection Department surrounding the airplane at a fair distance from the airplane, awaiting instructions.
Matthew, thank you very much for giving us those details. I'm just seeing another line coming in. The Times of Malta saying just 1 hijacker, yes, pro-Gaddafi, as Matthew was telling us, and wants his demands to be met and that he will let the people go, but we do not know what those demands actually are. Stay with the BBC World Service for more details on that. Just last couple of minutes of the programme, I want to bring in Rashad Ali from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue here in London, an expert in counter-terrorism. Rashad, looking at developments of this morning, Anis Amri, the suspect in the Berlin Christmas attack, shot dead by Italian police, what was your first thought?
I mean, the first thought, it kind of confirmed the suspicions that many had that ISIS had actually declared this was an attack which they had undertaken in that American magazine. And this is the first time they've done so before an individual has been shot or has been killed. And I think this is an indicator that actually he had left Germany. And so they felt quite confident and emboldened to do so, because traditionally they've never done that.
And the fact he seemed to go from Germany to France to Italy, the fact he was able to move around so freely, and it seemed to be a routine patrol that actually stopped him. What does that tell us?
Well, I think it's difficult to judge. I mean, essentially, within the Schengen environment, free movement is still possible. And I think there are lots of questions that people raise about this. But I think I would go back a little bit further about when intelligence services decided that this person was not actually someone they should be following, despite claims of radicalization in prison and the overt connections he had with well-known jihadist recruiters like Abu Wala in Germany. So I think there are bigger questions about how the intelligence decisions were made there before.
Good to speak to you, Rashad Ali. Some questions to consider as we continue to follow this story, of course, beginning in Berlin, but then in Milan, Sesto San Giovanni, a suburb, working class suburb to the northeast of the centre of Milan, is where this took place at about 3 a.m. in the morning. There will be a press conference, I'm told, taking place in about 30 minutes' time by Berlin's Interior Minister, Thomas de Maizière. He often gives quite a bit of detail, so stay with BBC World Service for that. I hope you have a good weekend. I'll be speaking to you on Monday, but from Dublin, so I do hope you will join me then for the next edition of Outside Source, and have a good Christmas if you're celebrating. Bye-bye.
With bbc.com/news, you get the latest news stories anytime you like.
Hi gang, I think I lost you for a few minutes during it, but it was so busy. Orla was getting us back online, which she did, which is great. Yes, Merry Christmas to everyone if you're celebrating, or I suppose it's lots of holidays, isn't it, over the next week or so, of various religions and faiths. Maybe you celebrate even if you're not religious, some people do as well. Lost, we came back. That's great. So, Monday, I'm going to try and connect to you, but I probably won't be able to do the whole show on Periscope. The reason being is just the feed into it. So what I'll do is try and show you the studio. We'll connect. I'll give you a heads up on the OS Periscope feed so you can see a little bit. I mean, otherwise I might be just looking at me in a studio on a high stool, which I don't know how exciting that will be. But we can. I'll check in with you on Monday anyway, and we'll show you a little bit of that. And am I religious? Well, many Irish people are brought up Catholic. I'll leave it at that, shall I? I will talk to you on Monday. Yeah, and I hope you have a good weekend. Thanks for all your comments and interaction this week, and we'll continue next week. Bye bye.